You've been told that quantum shifting requires years of study, expensive certifications, and complex protocols. You've been sold the idea that accessing higher dimensions of reality is some mystical art that only certified practitioners can master. But what if I told you that quantum shifting is so naturally simple that entire industries have been built around convincing you otherwise? What if the very complexity you've been taught to believe is necessary is actually the biggest barrier keeping you from the effortless reality shifts that are your birthright? What if I told you that right now, in this moment, you're already quantum shifting thousands of times per day, but you've been programmed to ignore it, dismiss it, and seek complicated external methods instead? Here's what's really happening. The billion-dollar consciousness industry doesn't want you to know that quantum shifting is as natural as breathing. They don't want you to realize that every time you change your emotional state, every time you shift your attention, every time you choose a different thought, you're literally collapsing wave functions and selecting which version of reality you experience. They've convinced you that this natural ability requires their courses, their certifications, their complex methodologies. But here's the thing that'll blow your mind. The most profound quantum shifts happen not through complicated techniques, but through the simplest recognition of what's already happening. Right now, as you're listening to these words, you're not the same person you were 30 seconds ago. The quantum field has already responded to your attention, your curiosity, your openness to possibility. You've already shifted into a slightly different version of reality just by being here. Let me share something that changed everything for me. I spent years studying quantum mechanics, consciousness research, and reality creation. I was convinced that mastery required understanding wave-particle duality, quantum entanglement, and the mathematical formulations of probability amplitudes. I collected certifications like trophies, believing each one brought me closer to some ultimate truth about reality shifting. Then something happened that shattered everything I thought I knew. I was sitting in my garden, completely frustrated after another complicated visualization protocol had failed to produce the reality shift I was seeking. I was tired, defeated, ready to give up on the whole thing. And in that moment of complete surrender, something extraordinary occurred. I noticed how the sunlight was hitting the leaves differently than it had moments before. Not because the sun had moved, but because my perception had shifted so completely that I was literally seeing a different version of my garden. The colors were more vivid. The air felt different on my skin, and I had this unmistakable knowing that I had quantum shifted into a parallel reality where everything was exactly the same, yet fundamentally different. That's when I realized the devastating truth. All those complex methods, all those certifications, all those expensive courses had been keeping me from the natural simplicity of quantum shifting. They had convinced me that what happens effortlessly needed to be made difficult. So here's what quantum shifting actually is and why the industry doesn't want you to know how simple it really is. At its core, quantum shifting is simply the natural response of reality to your state of being. Not your thoughts, not your visualizations, not your techniques, but your actual vibrational state, your embodied frequency, your authentic energetic signature. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you're trying to do. It responds to what you're actually being. And here's the kicker. What you're actually being is determined not by your conscious mind, but by the coherence between your heart, your nervous system, and your subconscious beliefs about what's possible for you. This is where quantum physics gets absolutely fascinating, and where the certified practitioners get it completely wrong. They focus on the mental level, on visualization and intention setting, completely missing the fact that quantum coherence happens at the level of your entire being. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that's 60 times stronger than your brain. Your nervous system is constantly broadcasting your internal state to the quantum field. Your subconscious mind is running programs that either support or sabotage every conscious intention you set. Real quantum shifting happens when these systems come into alignment, into what scientists call coherence. And here's what they don't want you to know. Coherence isn't something you create through complicated techniques. It's something you allow by removing the interference patterns that are already disrupting your natural state. Think about it this way. Have you ever had the experience of thinking about someone and then they call? Have you ever walked into a room and immediately known something had happened there? Have you ever had a gut feeling about a situation that turned out to be exactly right? These aren't coincidences or psychic abilities. These are examples of your natural quantum sensitivity, your innate ability to perceive and interact with the field of infinite possibilities. But here's where the conditioning kicks in. From childhood, You've been taught to dismiss these experiences, to rationalize them away, to seek external validation for what you're naturally perceiving. You've been trained to believe that accessing non-ordinary reality requires special training, special gifts, special circumstances. The truth is, you're already a master quantum shifter. You're just using your mastery unconsciously, often creating more of what you don't want because you're not aware of the signals you're broadcasting to the field. Every emotion you feel, every belief you hold, every story you tell yourself about reality is literally instructing the quantum field about which possibilities to collapse into your experience. This is why the certification industry exists, and why it's actually counterproductive to real quantum shifting. By convincing you that you need external training to access your own natural abilities, they create a dependency that keeps you seeking outside yourself for what's already within you. They make you doubt your natural perceptions, your intuitive knowing, your direct experience of reality's fluid nature. Let me tell you about Sarah, someone who discovered this truth in the most unexpected way. Sarah had spent over $15,000 on quantum manifestation courses, reality shifting certifications, and advanced consciousness training programs. She could speak fluently about parallel realities, dimensional jumping, and quantum timeline shifting. She had certificates from multiple institutions and could teach the techniques she'd learned, but her life wasn't changing. Despite all her knowledge, all her training, all her sophisticated understanding of quantum mechanics, she was still stuck in the same job, the same relationships, the same patterns that had driven her to seek quantum shifting in the first place. Then her grandmother got sick, and Sarah found herself spending weeks at her bedside in the hospital. No time for elaborate protocols, no energy for complicated visualizations, just the simple presence of being with someone she loved during a difficult time, and something remarkable began happening. Sarah started noticing that her grandmother's condition would improve whenever Sarah was feeling genuinely peaceful and connected. When Sarah was anxious or trying to force healing to happen, her grandmother would become agitated. But when Sarah simply relaxed into loving presence, her grandmother would visibly relax, her vital signs would stabilize, and the entire atmosphere in the room would shift. That's when Sarah realized she had been quantum shifting the entire time, but only when she stopped trying to quantum shift. Her natural state of loving presence was creating coherence not just within herself, but in the field around her. She was influencing reality not through techniques but through being authentically herself. This is the secret they don't want you to discover. Quantum shifting isn't something you do, it's something you are. It's not a skill you develop, it's a capacity you already possess that gets activated when you stop interfering with your natural state of coherence. But here's where it gets even more interesting from a scientific perspective. Recent research in quantum biology has shown that living systems, including human beings, are naturally quantum coherent. Your microtubules, the structures within your neurons, maintain quantum coherence at body temperature. Your DNA exhibits quantum properties. Your heart rhythm patterns create coherent electromagnetic fields that extend several feet beyond your body. You are literally a quantum system, not a classical mechanical system that occasionally experiences quantum effects. Your consciousness isn't separate from the quantum field, it's an expression of it. Your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs aren't just personal experiences. They're quantum information that's constantly being exchanged with the field of infinite possibilities. This changes everything about how quantum shifting actually works. Instead of trying to manipulate reality from outside the system, you recognize that you are the system. Instead of attempting to send intentions into the field, you realize you are the field expressing itself as individualized consciousness. Instead of working to create coherence, you simply remove the patterns that are disrupting your natural coherent state. And here's what's absolutely beautiful about this understanding. When you recognize quantum shifting as your natural state rather than something you need to learn, everything becomes effortless. You stop trying to force reality to change and start allowing it to respond to your authentic being. You stop seeking complicated methods and start trusting your direct experience. You stop looking for external validation and start honoring your inner knowing. But the conditioning runs deep, doesn't it? Right now, as I'm sharing this with you, part of your mind might be thinking, this sounds too simple. Surely there must be more to it. Surely I need to understand the technical aspects, learn the proper methods, get certified in the correct techniques. That voice isn't your intuition speaking. That's the programming that's been installed to keep you seeking outside yourself for what you already are. That's the conditioning that makes you doubt your natural abilities and trust external authorities more than your own direct experience. Here's a simple experiment that will prove to you how naturally quantum shifting happens. Right now, think about a place in nature that you love. Not visualizing, not trying to manifest anything, just allowing yourself to remember a place where you feel completely at peace. Notice what happens in your body as you connect with this memory. Feel how your breathing changes, how your nervous system settles, how your entire energetic state shifts. Now notice that as your internal state changed, your perception of this moment changed too. The quality of light in your environment might seem different. Sounds might be more or less noticeable. Your sense of time might have altered. You've just quantum shifted into a slightly different version of reality, and it happened effortlessly through the simple act of changing your state of being. This is quantum shifting, not the complicated protocols you've been sold, but this natural responsiveness of reality to your authentic state. And the more you recognize it happening, the more consciously you can work with it, not through force or manipulation, but through alignment and allowing. But here's where most people get stuck, and where the certification industry capitalizes on confusion. They assume that because quantum shifting can happen effortlessly, it should always be effortless. They expect that once they understand the simplicity, dramatic changes should happen immediately. When they don't see instant transformation, they conclude they're doing something wrong and seek more complex methods. The truth is more nuanced and more beautiful than instant manifestation. Quantum shifting is indeed natural and simple, but it works within the context of your entire life system. Your beliefs, your nervous system patterns, your subconscious programming, your energetic habits, all of these create what we might call your baseline reality frequency. You can shift into higher frequencies temporarily, and you can experience alternate possibilities. But sustainable quantum shifting happens as you gradually raise your baseline frequency through consistent alignment with your authentic nature. It's not about forcing dramatic changes. It's about allowing natural evolution to unfold at the pace that serves your highest good. This is why the quick fix mentality promoted by many quantum shifting programs actually interferes with real transformation. They promise instant results because that's what sells, but they ignore the deeper work of aligning your entire being with the reality you're seeking to experience. Real quantum shifting mastery isn't about learning to manipulate reality. It's about learning to embody the frequency of what you're seeking so completely that reality has no choice but to mirror that frequency back to you. It's about becoming so aligned with your desired experience that quantum shifting happens automatically, without effort, without techniques, without conscious intervention. And here's something profound that happens when you approach quantum shifting this way. You stop being attached to specific outcomes and start being curious about what wants to emerge through you. You stop trying to control the process and start trusting the intelligence of the quantum field to orchestrate synchronicities, opportunities, and experiences that serve your evolution in ways your conscious mind could never have planned. This is when quantum shifting becomes truly magical, not because you're manipulating reality, but because you're allowing reality to express its infinite creativity through your willingness to be authentic, present, and open to possibility. If you're feeling a spark of recognition as I share this, if something inside you is saying, yes, this feels true, then hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. We're building a community of people who are ready to reclaim their natural abilities, who are tired of being convinced they need external permission to access their own consciousness, who are ready to discover what becomes possible when you stop making the simple complicated. But there's something else happening here that we need to address directly, something the certification industry really doesn't want you to understand. The reason they make quantum shifting seem so complex isn't just about money, though that's certainly part of it. It's about power, about keeping you dependent on external authorities, rather than trusting your own direct experience of reality's fluid nature. Think about it. If you truly understood that you're already a master quantum shifter, that you're already collapsing wave functions and selecting realities thousands of times per day, that your consciousness is already intimately connected to the field of infinite possibilities, would you need their courses? Would you seek their certifications? Would you doubt your natural perceptions and abilities? The entire industry depends on you not knowing your own power. It depends on you believing that consciousness is something you have rather than something you are. It depends on you seeking complicated solutions to what is essentially the most natural thing in the universe, the responsiveness of reality to awareness itself. Where in your life have you been seeking external validation for what you already know to be true? Where have you been making the simple complicated, because you've been convinced that easy means ineffective? Drop one word in the comments that captures what's shifting for you as we explore this together. The word that keeps coming up in my research, the word that the certification industry absolutely doesn't want you to understand, is embodiment. Not as some mystical concept, but as a precise scientific phenomenon that explains why quantum shifting works effortlessly for some people and feels impossible for others. Here's what embodiment actually means in quantum terms, and why this understanding changes everything. Your body isn't just a physical vessel that carries your consciousness around. Your body is a quantum antenna, a sophisticated receiver and transmitter that's constantly exchanging information with the field of infinite possibilities. Every cell in your body contains quantum processes. Your nervous system operates through quantum tunneling. Your heart generates coherent electromagnetic fields that extend far beyond your physical boundaries. When you truly embody a frequency, when you don't just think about it or visualize it but actually become it at the cellular level, the quantum field has no choice but to respond. This isn't metaphysics. This is measurable science. Researchers at the Institute of HeartMath have documented how coherent heart rhythms create measurable changes in the electromagnetic field around your body, and how these changes can be detected by sensitive instruments up to 8 feet away. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. They've also shown that when you're in a coherent state, when your heart, mind, and emotions are aligned, you don't just change your own field. You influence the coherence of people around you. You literally quantum shift not just your own reality, but the collective reality of everyone in your electromagnetic field. This is why some people seem to effortlessly create positive changes wherever they go, while others struggle to manifest even small shifts in their personal lives. It's not about technique or training or certification. It's about the degree to which they've learned to embody coherent states naturally, unconsciously, as their default way of being. Let me tell you about Marcus, a janitor at a large corporate office building who had never heard of quantum shifting, manifestation, or consciousness work. Marcus had no certifications, no training in energy work, no understanding of quantum mechanics. But something extraordinary happened wherever Marcus worked. Departments that had been struggling with conflict would suddenly find solutions to long-standing problems after Marcus started cleaning their area. Employees who had been stressed and unhappy would begin enjoying their work more. Even the plants and offices that Marcus maintained seemed to grow more vibrantly than those in other areas of the building. When researchers finally studied what was happening, they discovered that Marcus naturally maintained what they called coherent presence. His heart rhythm patterns were consistently coherent, his nervous system was regulated, and his electromagnetic field was broadcasting a frequency of calm, steady well-being. He wasn't trying to influence anyone or anything. He was simply being authentically himself, and his authentic self happened to be naturally coherent. Marcus was quantum shifting reality everywhere he went, not through intention or technique, but through embodiment. His presence was literally changing the vibrational frequency of every environment he entered, and reality was responding by organizing itself into more harmonious patterns. This is what the certification industry doesn't want you to understand. The most powerful quantum shifters aren't the people with the most training or the most sophisticated techniques. They're the people who have learned to embody coherent states so naturally that they're constantly broadcasting frequencies that invite reality to reorganize itself around higher possibilities. And here's the beautiful thing about embodiment. You don't learn it through complicated methods. You discover it by removing the patterns that are preventing you from being naturally coherent. You don't add something to yourself. You subtract the interference that's disrupting your natural state. Think about a time when you felt completely authentic, completely yourself, completely at ease with who you are and where you were. Maybe it was in nature. Maybe it was with someone you love. Maybe it was during an activity that brought you joy. In that moment, you weren't trying to be coherent. You weren't working to maintain some special state. You were simply being, and your being was naturally coherent. That's your baseline. That's your natural frequency when nothing is interfering with it. And here's what's remarkable. When you're in that state, reality responds differently to you, doesn't it? Synchronicities happen more easily. People respond to you more positively. Opportunities seem to appear out of nowhere. Solutions to problems become obvious. You've been quantum shifting your entire life. You've just been doing it unconsciously, and you've been taught to dismiss the evidence of your natural abilities as coincidence or luck. But there's something deeper happening here that we need to explore, something that explains why the simple truth about quantum shifting has been hidden behind layers of complexity and certification requirements. It has to do with what I call the coherence conspiracy. Here's what I mean. A population of naturally coherent people, people who trust their own perceptions and abilities, people who know they can influence reality through their state of being, is a population that's very difficult to control. If you know you can quantum shift your circumstances through embodying different frequencies, you're less likely to accept circumstances that don't serve you. If you trust your natural ability to perceive truth directly, you're less likely to rely on external authorities to tell you what's real. The certification industry, the complexity around quantum shifting, the insistence that you need special training to access your natural abilities. All of this serves to keep you seeking outside yourself for what you already possess. It keeps you dependent, keeps you doubting your direct experience, keeps you believing that power lies somewhere other than in your own coherent presence. But reality itself is constantly trying to show you the truth. Every time you change your emotional state and notice that your circumstances seem to shift in response, every time you trust your intuition and it leads you exactly where you need to go, every time you embody a quality like gratitude or compassion and watch how differently people respond to you, reality is constantly demonstrating that you are already a master quantum shifter. The question isn't whether you can quantum shift. The question is whether you're willing to trust what you're already experiencing and stop seeking complicated explanations for what is essentially simple. Now let's talk about what happens when you start consciously working with your natural quantum shifting abilities, not through techniques or protocols, but through what I call coherent living. This is where everything becomes practical, where the science translates into everyday experience, where you discover that quantum shifting isn't something you do occasionally, it's something you embody continuously. Coherent living means organizing your life around maintaining your natural state of coherence, rather than constantly recovering from incoherent states. It means making choices that support your nervous system regulation, rather than choices that dysregulate you. It means surrounding yourself with people, environments, and activities that enhance your natural frequency, rather than dampening it. Here's what most people don't realize. Every choice you make either moves you toward coherence or away from it. Every relationship either supports your natural frequency or interferes with it. Every environment either enhances your quantum sensitivity or dulls it. Every activity either increases your embodied presence or fragments your attention. When you start organizing your life around coherence, when you start making choices that support your natural quantum sensitivity, something remarkable happens. You don't have to work to quantum shift anymore. You don't have to set intentions or practice techniques or follow protocols. Reality starts responding to your coherent presence automatically, continuously, effortlessly. This is what the ancient traditions understood, what indigenous cultures have always known, and what modern quantum physics is rediscovering. Consciousness and reality aren't separate. Your state of being and your circumstances aren't independent. Your internal coherence and your external experience are intimately connected through quantum field dynamics that operate below the threshold of ordinary awareness. But here's where people often get confused, and where the certification industry capitalizes on that confusion. They assume that if quantum shifting is natural and simple, it should also be easy to maintain consistently. They expect that once they understand the principles, they should be able to sustain coherent states effortlessly. The truth is more nuanced. While quantum shifting itself is natural, maintaining coherence in a culture that's designed to fragment your attention and dysregulate your nervous system requires conscious choice and consistent practice. Not complicated techniques, but simple practices that support your natural state. Let me share what I've discovered through years of research and direct experience. There are 3 foundational elements that determine your capacity for consistent quantum shifting. 3 areas where small changes create profound differences in your ability to maintain coherent states. The first is nervous system regulation. Your nervous system is the hardware that determines which frequencies you can embody and sustain. If your nervous system is chronically dysregulated, if you're operating from fight or flight states or freeze responses, you simply cannot maintain the coherent frequencies that invite positive quantum shifts. This isn't about perfection or never experiencing stress. It's about developing the capacity to return to regulation quickly, to recognize when you're moving into incoherent states, and to have simple practices that restore your natural coherence without drama or effort. The second is energetic boundaries. Most people have never learned to distinguish between their own energy and the energy they're absorbing from their environment. They take on other people's emotions. pick up the stress from chaotic environments, and allow their natural frequency to be constantly influenced by external conditions. Learning to maintain your own energetic coherence regardless of what's happening around you isn't about building walls or isolating yourself. It's about developing what I call permeable stability, the ability to remain open and responsive while maintaining your center, your authentic frequency, your natural state of coherence. The third is what I call reality discernment, the ability to distinguish between what's actually happening and the stories you're telling yourself about what's happening. Most people are quantum shifting constantly, but they're doing it unconsciously, often creating more of what they don't want because they're not aware of the frequency they're actually embodying. Reality discernment means becoming conscious of the difference between your surface thoughts and your deeper beliefs, between your conscious intentions and your subconscious expectations, between what you say you want and what you're actually embodying. These three elements work together to create what I call your coherence capacity, your ability to maintain the aligned states that invite positive quantum shifts naturally and consistently. And here's what's beautiful about developing coherence capacity. You don't need to understand quantum mechanics to do it. You don't need certifications or complex training. You just need to pay attention to what supports your natural state and what interferes with it. Think about your own experience. You already know what helps you feel coherent and what disrupts your coherence. You know which people leave you feeling energized and which ones drain you. You know which environments support your well-being and which ones stress you. You know which activities connect you to your authentic self and which ones fragment your attention. The path to quantum shifting mastery isn't learning something new. It's honoring what you already know and organizing your life around supporting your natural coherent state, rather than constantly recovering from incoherent states. But there's something else that happens as you develop coherence capacity, something that reveals the deeper purpose behind your natural quantum shifting abilities. You begin to recognize that you're not just shifting reality for personal benefit. You're participating in a collective evolution of consciousness, contributing to a field of coherence that supports the awakening of everyone around you. Remember Marcus, the janitor whose natural coherence was transforming entire office environments? He wasn't trying to help anyone. He wasn't consciously working to improve workplace dynamics. He was simply being authentically himself, and his authentic coherence was creating a field that invited everyone around him to access their own natural coherence. This is what happens when you embrace your natural quantum shifting abilities. You become what researchers call a coherence generator, someone whose presence creates field conditions that make it easier for others to access their own natural states of well-being, creativity, and authentic expression. You're not responsible for other people's choices or experiences, but your coherent presence creates possibilities that weren't available before. Your embodied frequency broadcasts information into the field that says, this level of peace is possible, this degree of authenticity is safe, this quality of presence is available. And here's where quantum shifting becomes not just a personal practice, but a form of service, a way of contributing to the collective evolution without trying to fix or change anyone. Simply by maintaining your own coherence, by trusting your natural abilities, by embodying your authentic frequency, you're creating ripples in the quantum field that support the awakening of consciousness everywhere. This is why the certification industry's approach is not just ineffective, but actually counterproductive. By making quantum shifting complicated, by convincing people they need external training to access their natural abilities, they're preventing the very thing that would most serve collective evolution. A population of people who trust their own coherent presence and embody their authentic frequency naturally. Can you feel how different this is from the complicated methods you've been sold? Can you sense how this understanding shifts you from seeking outside yourself to trusting what's already within you? Drop a comment about what's shifting in your awareness as we explore this together. The more I've researched this, the more I've discovered that every authentic spiritual tradition, every indigenous wisdom culture, every genuine consciousness teaching, has pointed toward this same simple truth. You are already whole. You are already connected. You are already capable of influencing reality through your state of being. The only question is whether you're willing to trust this truth and stop seeking complicated substitutes for what is essentially natural. But let's get practical here, because understanding the simplicity is just the beginning. How do you actually live this? How do you translate this understanding into daily experience? How do you develop the coherence capacity that allows quantum shifting to happen effortlessly? Here's where everything becomes beautifully simple, and where you'll discover that you already know more about this than any certification program could teach you. You develop coherence capacity the same way you develop any natural ability, through attention, practice, and consistent choice, but not complicated practice. Simple practice that honors your natural rhythms and supports your authentic expression. Start with nervous system regulation, because this is the foundation everything else builds upon. Your nervous system determines which frequencies you can access and sustain. When your nervous system is regulated, coherent states feel natural and effortless. When it's dysregulated, even simple practices feel difficult and forced. The beautiful thing about nervous system regulation is that you don't need to understand the neuroscience to support your nervous system effectively. Your body already knows what it needs. Your nervous system is constantly giving you feedback about what supports regulation and what creates dysregulation. Pay attention to your breathing throughout the day, not to control it or change it, but simply to notice it. Your breath is a direct reflection of your nervous system state, and conscious breathing is one of the most powerful tools for supporting regulation. When you notice your breath becoming shallow or rapid, that's information about your internal state, an invitation to pause and allow your system to recalibrate. Pay attention to your physical environment. Notice which spaces support your sense of well-being, and which ones create stress or agitation. Your nervous system is constantly responding to environmental cues, and creating spaces that support regulation is one of the simplest ways to maintain coherent states naturally. Pay attention to your relationships and interactions. Notice which people leave you feeling energized and connected, and which ones leave you feeling drained or fragmented. This isn't about judging anyone, it's about recognizing that your nervous system responds differently to different people, and that maintaining coherent relationships supports your overall coherence capacity. The second area, energetic boundaries, is where most people have never received any guidance and where simple awareness creates profound changes. You are constantly exchanging energy with your environment, absorbing emotional frequencies from the people around you, picking up information from spaces you enter, responding to energetic conditions that you may not even consciously notice. Learning to maintain your own energetic coherence while remaining open and responsive is like learning to swim. At first, it requires conscious attention and practice. Eventually, it becomes natural and automatic. You develop what I call energetic sovereignty, the ability to choose which frequencies you embody regardless of what's happening around you. This doesn't mean becoming closed or protective. It means developing the capacity to remain centered in your authentic frequency, while allowing yourself to be moved and influenced by life in ways that serve your highest good. It means learning to distinguish between resonance and absorption, between empathy and taking on others' emotions, between openness and energetic merging. The third area, reality discernment, is perhaps the most subtle and the most important. This is where you learn to recognize the difference between what's actually happening and the stories you're telling yourself about what's happening, between your conscious intentions and your unconscious expectations, between what you're trying to create and what you're actually embodying. Most people are quantum shifting constantly, but they're doing it unconsciously, often creating more of what they don't want because they're not aware of the frequency they're actually broadcasting. They think they're embodying gratitude while actually embodying anxiety about not having enough. They believe they're open to love while unconsciously broadcasting unworthiness. They intend to create abundance while embodying scarcity patterns they've never examined. Reality discernment means becoming conscious of these unconscious patterns, not to judge them or force them to change, but simply to recognize what's actually happening so you can make conscious choices about what you want to embody. This is where the real mastery lies and where you discover that quantum shifting isn't about getting reality to give you what you want. It's about becoming so aligned with your authentic nature that what you want and what you are become the same thing. It's about embodying the frequency of your desired experience so completely that quantum shifting happens automatically, without effort, without techniques, without conscious intervention. Ready to go deeper into how this actually works in practical terms? Because there's something else happening here that will completely change how you think about manifestation, abundance, and creating the life you truly desire. Here's what will absolutely revolutionize your understanding of how quantum shifting actually works in your daily life, and why the certification industry has been teaching it backwards. They've convinced you that quantum shifting is about getting reality to give you what you want. But the deepest truth is that quantum shifting is about discovering what reality is trying to give you through you. Let me explain what I mean, because this distinction changes everything. When you're trying to quantum shift from a place of lack, trying to get something you don't have, trying to force reality to conform to your mental pictures of how things should be. You're actually broadcasting the frequency of separation. You're telling the quantum field that you're not connected to what you desire, that it exists somewhere outside of you, that you need to manipulate reality to access it. But when you recognize that everything you truly desire is actually the quantum field, trying to express itself through your unique consciousness, everything shifts. Instead of trying to get something from reality, you start allowing reality to give something through you. Instead of forcing outcomes, you start collaborating with the intelligence that's already orchestrating your evolution. This is why some people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities, relationships, and experiences that perfectly match their authentic desires, while others struggle and force and work incredibly hard with minimal results. The people who make it look effortless aren't better at manifestation techniques. They've learned to recognize and trust what wants to emerge through them, rather than trying to impose their mental concepts onto reality. Think about the times in your life when something wonderful happened that you never could have planned or predicted. Maybe it was meeting someone who became important to you in an unexpected place. Maybe it was an opportunity that appeared just when you needed it most. Maybe it was a solution to a problem that came through a completely surprising channel. In those moments, you weren't trying to quantum shift. You weren't following protocols or using techniques. You were simply open, present, and available to what life was offering. You were in a state of receptive awareness that allowed the quantum field to organize itself around possibilities you hadn't even imagined. This is what I call collaborative quantum shifting, and it's the difference between forcing and allowing, between manipulation and cooperation, between trying to control reality and learning to dance with it. When you shift from trying to make things happen to allowing things to happen through you, you tap into an intelligence that's infinitely more creative and resourceful than your individual mind. But here's where it gets really interesting from a practical standpoint. Collaborative quantum shifting requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to desire itself. Instead of seeing your desires as personal wants that you need to fulfill, you start recognizing them as evolutionary impulses, as information from the quantum field about what wants to emerge through your unique expression of consciousness. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up your preferences. It means becoming curious about the deeper intelligence behind your desires, the evolutionary purpose they serve, the gifts they're trying to bring through you into the world. When you align with the deeper purpose behind your desires, the quantum field has infinite resources to support their manifestation. Let me share something that happened to me that illustrates this perfectly. For years, I had been trying to quantum shift my career situation, using every technique I knew to manifest specific opportunities in specific ways. I had vision boards, detailed action plans, and sophisticated manifestation protocols, but nothing was working the way I expected it to. Then something shifted in my understanding. Instead of trying to force specific outcomes, I started asking different questions. What is life trying to create through me? What wants to emerge through my unique gifts and perspectives? How can I serve the evolution of consciousness in ways that also fulfill my authentic desires? As soon as I shifted from trying to get something from life to discovering what life wanted to give through me, everything changed. Opportunities started appearing that were better than anything I had imagined. Connections formed naturally that supported my authentic expression. Resources became available that I never could have accessed through force or manipulation. The quantum field had been trying to support my evolution all along, but I had been so focused on my specific mental pictures of how things should unfold that I wasn't available to receive what was actually being offered. This is the missing piece that the certification industry doesn't understand, and why their methods often create more struggle than flow. They're teaching you to impose your will onto reality, rather than learning to recognize and collaborate with the will of reality itself. They're focused on techniques for getting what you want, rather than developing the sensitivity to perceive what wants to emerge through you. But when you learn to quantum shift collaboratively, when you develop the capacity to sense and trust the deeper intelligence that's orchestrating your evolution, everything becomes not just easier, but more fulfilling. You're not just getting what you thought you wanted, you're discovering desires and possibilities you never knew existed. And here's something beautiful that happens as you develop this collaborative relationship with the quantum field. You start to recognize that your individual evolution and the collective evolution of consciousness aren't separate processes. What wants to emerge through you serves not just your personal fulfillment, but the awakening and healing of the whole. Your authentic gifts, your unique perspective, your natural way of being coherent, All of this contributes to the collective field in ways that support everyone's capacity for quantum shifting. When you trust your natural abilities and embody your authentic frequency, you're not just transforming your own life, you're contributing to a field of coherence that makes transformation easier for everyone. This is why reclaiming your natural quantum shifting abilities is actually a form of service, a way of participating in the collective awakening that's happening on the planet right now. Every person who stops seeking outside themselves for what they already possess, every person who trusts their natural coherence and embodies their authentic frequency, contributes to a tipping point where this understanding becomes available to everyone. Can you feel how different this is from the complicated, effortful approach you've been taught? Can you sense how this collaborative understanding invites you into a completely different relationship with your desires, your circumstances, and your capacity to influence reality? If something is shifting in your understanding as we explore this together, if you're recognizing your own experiences in what I'm sharing, make sure you're subscribed, because we're building something important here. We're creating a community of people who are ready to trust their natural abilities, who are tired of being convinced they need external permission to access their own consciousness, who are ready to discover what becomes possible when you stop making the simple complicated. There's still more to explore about how this works in the practical details of daily life, about what happens when you fully embrace your identity as a natural quantum shifter, and about the profound implications this has for how you approach every aspect of your human experience. But first, let me ask you something that will help you integrate what we've covered so far. Where in your life have you been trying to force outcomes instead of allowing them to emerge? Where have you been seeking complicated solutions when simple presence might be more effective? What would change if you trusted that you're already naturally quantum shifting and simply needed to become more conscious of how you're doing it? Where in your life have you been trying to force outcomes instead of allowing them to emerge? Where have you been seeking complicated solutions when simple presence might be more effective? What would change if you trusted that you're already naturally quantum shifting and simply needed to become more conscious of how you're doing it? These questions point to the heart of everything we've explored together, and they reveal why the simple truth about quantum shifting has been hidden behind layers of unnecessary complexity. The answer isn't out there in some certification program or advanced training. The answer is in your willingness to trust what you're already experiencing and stop seeking permission to be who you already are. Here's what I want you to understand as we bring this exploration full circle. Every moment you've spent seeking external validation for your natural abilities, every dollar you've invested in learning what you already know, every time you've doubted your direct experience because someone with credentials told you it wasn't real or wasn't enough, all of that has served a purpose. It's brought you to this moment of recognition, this opportunity to reclaim what was never actually lost. You are not broken and in need of fixing. You are not lacking abilities that others possess. You are not missing some crucial piece of information that will finally make quantum shifting work for you. You are a natural quantum shifter who has been convinced to distrust your natural abilities, and the path forward isn't about learning something new. It's about remembering something ancient. Your consciousness and reality aren't separate. Your state of being and your circumstances aren't independent. Your authentic presence and the quantum field aren't disconnected. You are the quantum field expressing itself as individualized awareness. And every time you align with your natural coherence, every time you embody your authentic frequency, every time you trust your direct experience over external authority, you're quantum shifting reality simply by being yourself. This is the secret they don't want you to discover, because a population of people who trust their natural abilities is a population that's impossible to control. When you know you can influence reality through your state of being, you stop accepting realities that don't serve you. When you trust your capacity to quantum shift through embodied presence, you stop seeking salvation outside yourself. When you recognize that you're already connected to infinite possibilities, you stop believing in limitations that others try to impose upon you. The certification industry, the complexity, the expensive courses, all of it depends on you forgetting this truth. All of it requires you to believe that power lies somewhere other than in your own coherent presence. All of it needs you to doubt what you're already experiencing and seek complicated explanations for what is essentially natural. But reality itself has been your teacher all along. Every synchronicity you've experienced, every moment of perfect timing, every instance when changing your internal state seemed to shift your external circumstances, reality has been showing you that you are already a master quantum shifter. The only question is whether you're ready to trust this truth and stop making the simple complicated. As you move forward from this moment, as you begin to consciously work with your natural quantum shifting abilities, remember that this isn't about perfection, or never struggling, or always maintaining coherent states. This is about recognizing that you have a choice in every moment about which frequency you embody, about which version of reality you collapse into experience, about whether you trust your natural abilities or continue seeking outside yourself for what you already possess. Some days you'll remember easily, and quantum shifting will feel effortless and natural. Other days you'll forget, and you'll find yourself seeking complicated solutions or doubting your direct experience. Both are part of the journey, both serve your evolution, and neither changes the fundamental truth about who you are and what you're capable of. You are not learning to quantum shift. You are learning to quantum shift consciously, deliberately, in alignment with your authentic nature rather than unconsciously creating more of what you don't want. You are not developing new abilities. You are reclaiming natural abilities that have been educated out of you, conditioned away from you, convinced into hiding by a culture that profits from your disconnection from your own power. The quantum field is not something separate from you that you need to learn to influence. You are the quantum field expressing itself as individualized consciousness, and every choice you make, every frequency you embody, every state you maintain is literally instructing reality about which possibilities to manifest into your experience. This understanding changes everything, not because it gives you power you didn't have, but because it reveals the power you've always possessed and helps you use it consciously, coherently, in service of your authentic evolution and the collective awakening of consciousness on this planet. If this exploration has shifted something in your understanding, if you're ready to trust your natural abilities and stop seeking permission to be who you already are, then this is just the beginning. Subscribe to join a community of natural quantum shifters who are reclaiming their authentic power, and let me know in the comments what's shifting for you as you embrace this truth. The simplest things are often the most profound, and the most profound things are often surprisingly simple. Quantum shifting is your birthright, your natural capacity, your authentic way of being in conscious relationship with the infinite field of possibilities that surrounds and interpenetrates every moment of your existence. Stop seeking outside yourself for what you already are, and start trusting the quantum shifter you've always been.